The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Peter van Daele from imec in Belgium, and I'm the project coordinator for Fed4FIRE Plus. We're just going to wait a few more moments for extra people to sign in and to join us. So just hold the line for 1 or 2 minutes. Okay, I think we can get started. So welcome again. So this workshop this afternoon is mainly about Fed4FIRE Plus and what we offer as possibilities for experimentation within the NGI domain. We have some extra people besides me who are going to take a presentation and take the floor here this afternoon. So I'll start off with a short introduction about the project, what we can do, what we can offer. Then my colleague Brecht Vermeulen, who is the technical lead for Fed4FIRE Plus, will give an overview of different testbeds that we have available. And then we have invited two of our experimenters who responded to the open calls and who can present a kind of success story of how they worked with our testbeds and how this improved their product and or their tools. And at the end, I'll very shortly come back with a few slides on the open calls where you can get funding to run your experiment on Fed4FIRE Plus. At the end, we'll have some Q&A and conclusions. So if you have questions, just put them in the question box, and so we'll group them all together at the end of all the presentations. So we'll keep track of them in the question box of this webinar. So let's get started. I think that NGI, Next Generation Internet, is well, it's identically the same as the evolution for the digital society, and this digital society is getting into our daily lives, daily way of working, way of living at all kinds of levels. But it's making use of a very wide and broad range of different technologies. So I don't know if some of you have been attending the presentations yesterday and this morning for the NGI forum, but for example, the keynote yesterday morning, there was all kind of examples of ways or applications where NGI will have an impact on our daily life. And it's not only making use of a wide range of technologies, but it's also linking an interaction between different heterogeneous technologies, which is making it much more complex to work in this and do research in this domain. Now, all of these new research topics, the ideas, the concepts, the products, the tools that we want to introduce into the NGI domain in the network itself, they have to be implemented in a very highly competitive environment with rapidly evolving requirements and, as I said, in a multi and cross-technology area. And since we cannot introduce new ideas, new concepts, new tools as such, in a live environment in the network, you have to do some testing, some experimenting or qualification prior to introducing your product. And this requires for up-to-date testing facilities which mimic the real world, which mimic the real situation and the real network, and also provide skilled support. And having this in-house is far too expensive for many players. Even the big industrial companies cannot cover all those required technologies or know-how within their own facilities. So that's where Fed4FIRE Plus comes in. Now, Fed4FIRE Plus is a project, an H2020 project that started in 2017. But before that, in FP7, we already had Fed4FIRE. So this is Fed4FIRE Plus, obviously. Now, what is the starting point is just seeing that within Europe, we have top quality test beds in the NGI domain. So there's a lot of research institutes, a lot of academic groups who have top quality experimentation facilities in this domain. And what we have as the objective within Fed4FIRE is to make these accessible to SMEs, to industry, to other academic groups, research institutes. Now, so what we have as the objective is to serve the community and to support this digital transformation. By doing this, by offering low threshold access to top quality research infrastructures, covering a broad spectrum of activities, application areas, and a wide range of technologies, and supporting this cross-technology aspect. So we have different testbeds and different technologies in our portfolio. Brecht, just after me, will tell a little bit more about this. But what we want to do is to offer a simple, efficient, and cost-effective experimental process where people can do research, development, looking for upgrades, stress tests, reality checks of their products, of their ideas, using all those different technologies. Just the range, it comes out of a survey we did with some of our experimenters, where you look at the application areas and you see that indeed it's a very broad range, going from smart city over smart cars, networks, automotive teaching, agriculture, healthcare, and so on. Now, is this for you? If you see, for example, if we see on the left-hand side, there it's the division of the submitted proposals. And then on the right-hand side, the bigger pie chart is the accepted proposal. There you see that about 3/4 of our accepted experiments are from SMEs. In most cases, those are rather small experiments with a lower budget. This makes it possible to support more of those types of experiments. But you also see participation from industry, from research institutions, and from academia, which are then, in that case, larger budgets which are used. So what are the modalities? Well, in fact, it's for free. All of the testbeds within Fed4FIRE use open access. So that makes that you have make an account and you can get access to those testbeds. But then you also do not get a lot of support. You get basic support if really something goes wrong. But you can also go for accessibility with funding through our open calls, so where you get paid, but also get support by the testbed owners. And I'll come back to that after the presentations towards the end of this webinar, what the calls are and what the timing is there. But all the testbeds are operated by academia or research institutes. That makes it they are vendor or operator neutral, and your IP remains your IP. And IP is not the IP address, but it's intellectual property. It's not your IP address. But what you do and you develop within using our testbeds is indeed remains your property, like intellectual property. The only thing that we ask is that indeed, if you make some publication, some advertisement, announcement, things like that, and there is a possibility to mention that you have been using Fed4FIRE test facilities, that would be great for us. Now, how do you do the experimentation on the test beds themselves? well, we're working and trying to lower the threshold for experimentations by especially SMEs, but also industry and researching organizations. We do that by constantly upgrading and improving our facilities to increase the user satisfaction. So out of the survey we get as a response of the experimenters, it seems that people are very happy with what is happening. Now, I'll come back to the open calls later towards the end of the webinar, but I'll now hand over to Brecht for giving a presentation on the different testbeds that we have available. So Brecht, it's up to you. So you'll have to make yourself presenter.
Yes, thanks, Peter, for this nice introduction. I'll try to share my screen. So I will tell a bit more about how to experiment on Fed4FIRE. And as Peter already told, we had two phases in Fed4FIRE, starting actually almost 10 years ago, where we started with federating those testbeds. So we do have a number of different testbeds supporting different technologies. All testbeds are also from a different organization aspect, also different people who maintain that. And here you see with the colors, we try to indicate which testbeds support which technology. So for instance, in green, these are for wired networking experiments. Blue is wireless, orange is like 5G. So you see that some testbeds support multiple technologies for experimentation, others only support one. But this gives you a first indication what is available. And now, what was the main goal of Fed4FIRE? So what is federation? And it's quite simple. So it's towards the experimenter, towards the user of the testbeds. We want to make it easy so that you can use multiple testbeds. So main thing is a single account. So you create one account on the Fed4FIRE portal and you can actually access all those different testbeds. And the second one is that we try to get everything in a single tool. Sometimes it doesn't work and you need like maybe two tools, but to limit the number of tools. And actually with JFed, you can access 95% of all the testbeds for the moment. Then comes the question, well, why should I use multiple testbeds? I know one testbed and I'm actually okay with that. Well, we have seen that some experimenters want to scale up and beyond resources, number of resources that are available in a single testbed, or they want to use special resources which are only present at a single testbed, or they want to have compare environments. So especially in the wireless experimentation, you want to see one environment compare it to another, maybe other wireless cards, etc. So you do have different reasons for using multiple testbeds. So that means they should not used at the same time. Normally, maybe they can be at different times, but then you can compare results. So the design principles of Fed4FIRE, and the thing is, it's a European project which will indeed end the end of this year, but we want to maintain this further. And for that, we had design principles where every component can be changed. So for instance, at the bottom, you see we support multiple testbeds. Already during Fed4FIRE, new testbeds have come in. Some testbeds were removed because they were outdated. So this will keep on going, and in the future, that will be possible. As I said, multiple tools. So maybe one tool is better for you than the other to use. Maybe you like command line tools. Maybe you like a user interface. So that's all present. And then multiple identity providers, but the main account or identity provider is the Fed4FIRE portal, of course. To give you an idea of how it is used, At the top, you see from 2013 till 2019. The good reason is we started with a new portal in 2020, but there you see that we went up till, well, about 1,500 different users, and now since 2020 up till now, more than 750 users who use the testbed. So it is used a lot. It's mature to use. It's not like a demo environment. Another view on that is the number of projects. One project is, for instance, a PhD. So you do a lot of experimentation and during a PhD, but we count it as a single project, or the same for one company who does a lot of experimentation over time, but it's contained in one project, combining a number of users. And there you see, well, we went over from 2013 to 2019 to almost 900 different projects. And now, since 2020, in a year and a half, we're about 450 projects there. So you see also here a lot of different experimentation ongoing. It not only stops at Europe and the testbeds which I showed on the first map, but this shows you a map of the world, testbeds in the world, which are accessible with the same Fed4FIRE account. So actually, we federated with other testbeds as well, and particularly the US testbeds of Genie, and also Brazilian testbeds. So these are also accessible. It is clear that because we do not manage all those testbeds, you should have an ID. We cannot say there's maintenance there, or it will be down, or whatever. So what we do is we monitor all those testbeds and we report the uptimes, the current available resources to the user, so he can pick up the right testbed based on that. So maybe if, for instance, here red one is down for the moment, you just pick another one in another location to do the same experiment. So that's so fedmon.fed4fire.eu shows you such an overview of the different testbeds, and you can go into detail on the available resources. So what is now the main thing is, of course, all testbeds are remotely accessible. Very interesting for during this pandemic, of course. For instance, here you have a virtual testbed with a lot of servers available, and the experiment shown is you deploy some cloud stacks and some networking in between, and you can actually have a distributed cloud environment in a single location to test out a couple of things. So that gives you the basic ID. This is the user interface, the JFed tool, where you can actually just draw your topology, your resources you want to use, define some configurations for that, and then use your experiment. So each box in this view is actually, for instance, a server or a wireless node that is used. And the thing is, we give, well, bare metal access to those resources. So for instance, servers, you are root, you have bare metal access, you can deploy everything you want. And in that way, you can actually use all kinds of new technologies whenever they are available. So for instance, at the start, and 10 years ago, Kubernetes was not known. I think even Docker containers did not exist. Well, people just started when they were available. They deployed this on the testbed and they start using that. So no need to introduce a new testbed for that. We can actually support it already. This gives you just a quick idea of an experiment. For instance, suppose a company wants to deliver a global video service in a cost-efficient and redundant way. So what we do is we start with users at US and EU users. So with users, I mean simulated or emulated users. So some scripts which will download some videos. And then we select the testbeds to do that. So as you can see, we selected a number of testbeds at US side. We connected them over internet too, over GR network with testbeds at European side. and then actually in a redundant way with a triangle, and we could start some experimentation on that. So how to come to that? So first you start, for instance, with a single testbed prototype that can learn you already a lot. So about your software, your distributed software, how does it work? You can already maybe do some scalability things on even a single testbed. But then if you want to upscale and you need more resources, you want the real internet links, you use different testbeds. So you see the colors here indicate that it is on different testbeds. So each color indicates a specific testbed, and you make some backbone between the different testbeds. And then you scale up for a shorter time. Maybe that's only 1 day that you need that. You scale up with a number of resources that you add on each location, and then you can do some scaling experiments. And then in the end, you can monitor, for instance, if you break a link, what happens with all the traffic between these different sites. So this gives you an idea of some experiments. For instance, what we did also on the previous topology is emulating day and night. You know the time difference between US and EU. We actually moved this faster than real time, so we can do some emulated experiments on that. And we could also, for instance, introduce network function virtualization. Also, that is simple. You can actually introduce Open vSwitch on some nodes or a click kernel, and you can do that VNF things. We also go far further that you can actually automate your whole experiment. So you can combine the resources together with some files, some software, some commands to be executed. In that way, you can easily scale up or make repeatable experiments. So for instance, in wireless environment, that you can repeat over time the same experiment. Or for scientific publications, you can share the data that way. So, well, Fed4FIRE, as Peter already told, supporting a lot of technologies. But it can actually support all your experiments as you need. Maybe some interesting links here, the documentation website and the portal, but I will very quickly show JFed. So that's the tool that you can use to reserve your resources. So what happens is you drag in, for instance, some servers, you make connections between them. If you double click, you can actually choose the testbed, and you see some indication of the number of available resources or the health of that testbed. So based on that, you can choose the right equipment. You see, of course, also here wireless equipment, 5G, etc. So based on that, you can easily select your resources. And the last thing I want to show you is our portal. This is the new portal that will come online like next week, but I want to show you an interesting part of that, and that is to discover the testbeds. Because if you are new and you do not know the different testbeds, how do you discover the right one for you? So we made it very easy here, and we start with very simple things. Do you want to, for instance, do a wireless experiment? You click that button, and then you have like 3 selected testbeds, but then you can even filter more. For instance, on technologies like does it support SDRs, LTE, Zigbee, etc. For instance, if you would like SDR, then you come up with this testbed. So in that way, it's very easy for you to select the right testbed. You have some more information, a link to the technical documentation, and then also some tutorials there on how to use that specific testbed. So in that way, it should be very simple to select the testbed and to actually get access to the resources. So that was a very quick introduction. So now I will give the floor back to Daniele for his experiment overview of what he did on the testbeds. So I'll make Daniele the presenter. If you unmute, yeah, Daniele.
Yeah, thanks, Brecht, and good morning, everybody. Daniele speaking here from beautiful Trento in northern Italy. And I'm here to basically tell you a story of how we ended up working with Fed4FIRE Plus. Okay, so it all started about 1 year ago. I was actually about to sign a small consultancy contract with a national research agency. And they wanted basically to ensure that I was qualified, so they asked me for a copy of my PhD certificate, which looks like, well, the one that you see here. So, you know, it's this paper, nicely carved with some stamps and everything. But, you know, unfortunately, this kind of paper stuff, well, they tend to get lost, in particular if you move a lot, as I've been doing over the past decade. So I just couldn't find it. So I said, well, okay, no problem. I'm going online, and I will ask my university to get a copy of it. Well, I contacted my university of Padua in Italy, and they told me, yeah, no problem, just book an appointment and you can come to our secretary. And I was kind of, well, I hope you're joking, we are in lockdown. I cannot come physically to your offices. And they say, yeah, okay, yeah, it's right. So maybe we can do it. So you basically buy some stamps, you send these stamps by snail mail, and we will send you back a copy by snail mail. And I say, how long is that going to take? And they told me, well, about 1.5 months. And I say, no, come on, guys. I don't have this time. Can we do it online? And they say, oh, yeah, of course. Just send us a fax. And I was like this, you know, I mean, 2020, and you asked me to have a fax. Okay, I mean, this means that something is broken, okay? And this story about my personal experience is just really the symptom of the fact that education certificates, which are something very, very important in the knowledge society we want to build in Europe, are very important, but the way we manage them is broken. And of course, you know, as an innovator and entrepreneur, our question was, well, can we fix it? Well, let's me go back one moment to what are the key problems here. Well, in most cases, certificates are still issued in paper form, as in my case. The ones that are handing it in digital form, so they basically have a digital backend for managing the certificate life cycle, still typically suffer from vendor lock-in, no interoperability, no open standard. You buy Oracle once and you're bound to it forever, kind of this kind of stuff, right? Most important, recipients are not in control of the certificates. I mean, this is my certificate. I earned it. You know, sweat, blood, and tear got into it, and I cannot make a copy. No, because formally it's not mine. Okay, this goes back to what Katia from Nesta was discussing this morning about self-sovereignty of data. But even something important, I mean, as an employer, if somebody comes to me and tells me, well, I have this master degree from this university, how can I check it? It turns out that it's basically almost impossible to check the authenticity of a certificate, okay? So the problems are there, they are real, and well, what we did, being technology people, is there an opportunity for doing something new? The opportunity is there, and there are two fundamental building blocks that can get into the picture. The first is that we need open standards for representing educational and training certificates. And we have a quite nice open standard, Open Badges, originally developed by Mozilla Foundation, now managed by IMS Global, but allow me to basically represent a certificate in a vendor-independent format. And on the other hand, I have distributed ledger technology. So, well, let's say blockchain plus, okay? So this idea that I can store something in a digital format over a distributed infrastructure, it's tamper resistant, and it has some very nice features I can leverage. So we took these two components and we came up with a solution that we called Golden Owl. Golden Owl presents a number of advantages for recipients. They have full control on the certificates they receive. They are kind of in your wallet or the equivalent of a wallet. For issuers like academic institutions, it reduces the certificate management costs and related bureaucracy. And for employers, it makes it very easy, fast, and automated to check the veracity of a certificate. So what we did in the company was to develop a prototype, run a couple of small proof of concepts, but then we were kind of ready to launch to market, or almost ready, but then we got into a problem. Does it scale? I mean, we were running some small proof of concept. What if we end up signing, I don't know, tens of thousands of users and hundreds of issuers. Will our software survive it? Well, that's really where Fed4FIRE kicked in. Why? Because they provided us with the infrastructure and tools to test our solution at scale, okay? So we started with what is called in the Fed4FIRE Plus lingo stage 1 experiment. We used one of the infrastructure facility federated in Fed4FIRE Plus, Grid 5000, which is a cloud in vitro. So, you know, a large-scale distributed computer infrastructure when you can run experiments in a controlled and repeatable way. We ended up with defining 8 experiments, had more than 200 runs, collected more than 8 GB of experimental data. But what is important is that this experiment allowed us to identify 4 scalability bottlenecks. So we basically said, okay, let's address them one by one. And we came up with a new product development roadmap. We basically defined 4 new features that we wanted to include to improve the scalability of our software. So far, so good. But what we needed then was to basically make sure that these 4 features were really going to solve the problem. So what we did, we went for a stage 2 experiment, which was about experimentally driven product enhancement. So we had these kind of loops in which we were building a new feature, we were deploying it on Fed4FIRE Plus, and we were measuring the performance, benchmarking against what we did in the stage 1 to really see the impact on performance of a specific new feature that we just added. This went on for 5 months. We basically closed it a few weeks ago, collected more than 20 GB of experimental data, and the results is that we managed to reduce the latency in our system by 15%, actually up to 60% in scenarios characterized by a small number of requests. We managed to reduce the traffic generated by 20% and the CPU usage by 15%, which, as you might imagine, are going to improve dramatically our unit economics. So, all in all, why we think actually applying to Fed4FIRE Plus might be a great idea, in particular if you are a software-intensive SME developing big data solutions. 1, you get access to large-scale experimental facilities which would be out of your reach, just because it's too expensive to do it on public clouds. Second, you get tools for managing and at least partially automating experiments, as Brecht was showing before. You get access to top-notch expertise. It's not just the hardware and software, but you can actually talk to the real expert, okay? So at the end of the day, what you do as an entrepreneur, you save time and cost. And surprisingly, this is free. No, it's not free, it's even better. You can actually get financial support. So based on our experience, I can say no more than, guys, if you have something that requires testing at scale, go to Fed4FIRE Plus, because this is something that will create tangible benefits for your business. Thanks for your attention.
Thanks, Daniele, for the nice words. Next speaker is Paulo, and I will make Paulo the presenter so he can share the screen. So up to you, Paulo.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Good, so, and also to see my screen, I guess. Okay, so, sorry, this is not my presentation for today, this is my presentation. Okay, so, good afternoon, thank you very much for the invitation. So, I'm Paulo, I'm the founder of AllBeSmart. That is a company focused on wireless communications and more precisely on the 5G and the opportunities that 5G will bring. I'm going to give you an overview of the company quickly, and then our experience on Fed4FIRE Plus SME as an open call experimenter, and what are the impact on our business. So we are a company, SME from Portugal, founded in 2015, working on wireless connectivity and IoT solutions, looking for opportunities. And then 2 years ago, we understood that vehicular communications is something that is coming. We will bring a lot of opportunities for companies that develop intelligent transport systems on top. because this will be, let's say, the start point of autonomous driving. So V2X will unlock the potential of autonomous driving, and we, as a company, will look for services that we can deploy and provide to road operators and smart cities. So we came across with this imec smart highway testbed that is provided in Antwerp by imec, and we decide to apply for run a trial that we will implement intelligence transport applications on top of this infrastructure. So it's a real-life, real-time, large-scale infrastructure in the E313 highway between Antwerp and Brussels. So they have installed roadside units cabinets across the highway with the roadside units and optical connection, mobile edge computing facilities able to be used by experimenters like us. And also they have a car with onboard units, radars, LiDAR systems, where we can also test our services. So we deploy on top of the hardware infrastructure our services, and we went to the field, to the smart highway, and managed to test in the real environment. I'll show you just a quick video that shows some of the experiments that we. So we start with this emergency vehicle approaching services. Before go to the field, we were able to do in environment simulation the testing of the messages that are shared between the cars and the infrastructure. And here you can see that the driver will get an alert saying that there is a vehicle, emergency vehicle approaching, coming. So it's something that we were able to test in the real environment using communications between two onboard units. Another service is the traffic jam ahead warning, where the road operator can digitally create in a map an alert that there is a traffic jam, and then the cars that are approaching to the traffic jam will get information with the distance that you are from the traffic jam. And this is something that you can see the meters, the distance that you are from, are decreasing. This information comes from antennas that are installed across the highway, or the roadworks warning, where the drivers get information about works that are ongoing on the infrastructure and the speed that you have to go and so on. And then, okay, this is we improve our software there. We do a lot of testing, and then what are the impacts in terms of our business? We use this. This showcase was very useful for us to show that our experience to approach important client that is globalvia, that is a road operator in Portugal and Spain, and they are interested to install vehicular communications roadside units across the A23 highway that is from people that is coming from Spain to Lisbon. We have to cross this A23, and we were selected in the competition, let's say, and we got the contract with globalvia, where we have deploy a project around this tunnel, where we have installed 8 roadside units, also inside the tunnel, connected by optical fiber. And so somehow we, with the lessons learned from experience in the smart highway, we replicate here. We use also called the wireless equipment, and then of course we deploy our services on top. And I'm going to give you just an example. Okay, this is the cars from globalvia to do the testing, and this is one of the ITS services, is the animal on the road, where the operator can create an alert. In this case, there is an animal in the highway, and the people that is approaching this danger, let's say, will get messages here. So this is something that was somehow experiment before in the Smart Highway, and then with this experience we could also create a business around this. And then, so just to summarize, for us it was a very important and crucial step in our product development process to have access to the Smart Highway. The showcase was very important to attract clients for our ITS solutions, and the great points of Fed4FIRE Plus is that you have access to the state-of-the-art experimental facilities. We can get financial support. It is very interesting for a startup company like us. Remote access and technical support from experts, in this case from imec. And also something that I like is the low administrative burden compared with other Horizon 2020 projects, because here you only have to write a deliverable at the end. So there is low paperwork related, and you can actually focus on your experiment and improve your service or product. Okay, I would like just to thank you imec and Fed4FIRE for the support. It was very interesting and a great experience for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paulo, for the nice story. We go back to Peter for an insight on the open calls and an upcoming open call.
Yeah, thank you very much. Trying to share the screen. Okay.
It's okay.
So, yeah. So indeed, just a few words on the way you can get financial support for your experiments through the open calls. So in fact, as I mentioned earlier, the purpose of this competitive open call is to lower the threshold for experimenters to access the facilities. So this can be done by providing funding, by also providing a patron for the support, technical support in both setting up and running the experiment. And as was just mentioned by Paulo, is the very low administrative effort. There are not the normal EU formalities which are required. It's just a report, a short report at the end of the experiment. And also for the financial implications, it's just an invoice which is required. Now, in return, what does Fed4FIRE get back from the experimenter? Well, as I said, the report, also a presentation, like for example, now also from Paulo and Daniele, presentations are getting some feedback in general on how it was and what drove them to get to Fed4FIRE, what their experience was. So we're using that to prove the added value that we can offer. Now, it's so that Fed4FIRE Plus is running towards the end of its time. Normally, it should end somewhere end of 2021, beginning 2022. And we only have one standard open call, which is still going to run, and it has just opened this morning. So it's very well timed, and this is called our open call 9. It's the 9th in this series. Now, what you have to do as preparation of the proposal is provide a summary of the project, a detailed description, but with a limited number of pages. Check what kind of tools that you require. You have to check, have to get in contact with Testbed just to exchange ideas. What do you want to do, whether or not to see and to check if it's compliant with the Testbed, if it can be possible to do that. Also give some background on your own expertise and qualifications, what you expect to provide as feedback, but future plans, requested funding. But as you see, it's all limited in, very limited in number of pages. So for this open call 9, which is just opened, it's aiming at experiments that last for about 5 months with a maximum budget of 55k euro, for 55,000 euro maximum. Now, it's also so that beside this standard open call, we still have Sorry. So we also have our SME continuous open call, and that's particularly targeting SMEs, and there it's continuous. So every 2 weeks, we just collect all the different proposals that came in, and we review them and present them to a review panel, and then check whether or not it's okay. Now, these are smaller projects, just a duration of 1 month, but also much more limited in information that needs to be provided. And the funding is also more limited. It's only 10,000 euros that can be provided at the maximum. So, but this is especially aimed at SMEs for small projects, something trying to try out. And you also have to keep in mind that after completion of this experiment, even the small one, then you have some expertise already yourself in using those facilities, and those facilities remain free for use. That means that, okay, you cannot get funded, you cannot receive money for doing the experiment, but you don't have to pay to get using them. So you can just continue using them. Now, Brecht already mentioned it, we're a federation of testbeds, so is there a requirement to use multiple testbeds to get the approval rate of your proposal increased? Well, it's not the case. As you see here on this pie chart, about 2/3 of the proposals that were accepted only use one single testbed. Finally, there are some who use about a quarter use 2 testbeds, and then smaller numbers use 3 or even 4 testbeds, where it's really a complex experiment or using different technologies or comparing different technologies. So, but it's not a requirement to use multiple testbeds. Now, what's the added value that you can expect? Well, if you see on our survey on the results and the feedback that we get, the open call experimenters especially like the big variety of testbeds and technologies that we have available. So all the different technologies are being used. So we get applications from all kind of sites. The open access, so that indeed it's free to use. So you can just access it like it is. It's free. And the ease of use, using the tools like, for example, JFed tool that Brecht has shown, is very easy to be used, also for non-experts. Now, if you look into what the outcome of the experiment is for the business of the experimenter itself, well, they in most cases have a very significant impact on the activities, the business or the research activities. And I think the 2 success stories that we have seen from Paulo and Daniele show this, that it indeed has a big impact on their business. And also, it's an improvement. In most cases, it can improve the product itself. Just upscaling it, trying to detect, like Daniele mentioned, trying to detect bottlenecks in the software and so on. So this concludes the presentation. If you have questions, please go ahead. If you want to learn more about it and test and check the facilities, check our website. And also there you have the possibility to get information about the open call, which is now just opened. And you can also get more information there and descriptions of the different testbeds. So I will hand over to Brecht to see whether or not there's some questions that came in.
Yes, thank you, Peter. Yeah, so it's still open to ask questions. There were already 2 questions asked, and they are for you, Peter. So okay. The first one draws on the interest, I think, for the low administration during the call. So should we internally keep also timesheets to show the hours and justify the personnel costs, or no, the invoice and the technical review is enough?
That's enough. So indeed, it's not required to have any timesheets. What we require is, when you submit your proposal, is that you have a budget proposal there, indicating the number of man-months that you expect to use. It's just to give us an idea about the value for money. But finally, there are no details on the use of the budget itself that are required. You just send us an invoice. That's the only thing. And so we do not care what you do with that money. If we find that the results are okay for that amount, then it goes ahead, and you can just invoice us.
Yeah. And the second question, is there any specific topic for the call? Maybe I can answer that. So there's indeed, we did before some specific calls on maybe technologies. What we have done now for this call, as it is the final big call for Fed4FIRE, we want to showcase well, the outcome of the project, so the technical federation. So there's no technical topic to be addressed, so it's very open, but we have limited the testbeds to the ones that are really fully federated, fully used with a single account with the JFed tool, as I explained in my talk. So, but that's obvious from the testbeds listed in the call document, but any technology can or any topic can be addressed, yes. So if any more questions, please put them in the question box. No. So the we also have the tutorials available. So on the documentation website, you will find them both in text, and we have also done some webinars that we will make available, so you can see how it can be used. But apart from that, we also want to stress that it is open access. So even without a call, you can just register for an account and start using it, maybe just to look if it's useful for you or not. Just go ahead and you can ask and have access to the testbeds. I don't see any further questions, Peter.
No, okay, that's good. Thank you very much. But I just want to call to everybody, check our website, but also might check our social media channels, because we send out some messages on Twitter and so on. But there, the links again are on the website available, because through those channels we also announce our open calls or any news or other opportunities that we have available. So if there are no further questions, I would like to thank all of you for participating. As said, stay tuned, look at our website to get information, and keep safe, especially in these circumstances. So I hope to meet all of you at some kind of event that we organize, physical event, and but in the meantime, all the best, and thank you very much. Bye.